accredited.
So today I wanted to do a video about something a little different. Normally I do car related stuff, but I wanted to talk about the house, specifically the furnace. It's tucked back here, you can hardly see it, but I'd like to talk about this furnace here. This is the furnace in particular that I want to talk about. This is the Payne, made by Carrier. Carrier, Payne, it's all the same company, it's all the same furnace. They might change this little plastic piece on the front, but that's about it. Otherwise, inside, even outside, it's the exact same furnace. Before I get started on issues that I've had with this furnace and how to repair them, I just want to tell a little story, give a little bit of a background. So, I originally purchased this furnace in 2014, and it cost $4,500. That included installation, which apparently is about standard for these modern furnaces. Now, I gotta say, modern furnaces are very efficient. They're better than the old ones as far as efficiency, delivering heat, gas consumption, right? But ever since this furnace was installed, I have had nothing but problems. And searching YouTube, searching the internet, I have found I'm not the only one. These furnaces, especially in an older home, is nothing but a giant pain in the butt. So, modern homes are actually designed specifically to use these more modern furnaces, right? So they purposely set the furnace in the basement on an exterior wall, or even at ground level on an exterior wall, so that the vent pipes are relatively short, they vent correctly, and everything's within code. All is well. But if you're doing a retrofit, as far as installing a modern furnace in an older home, a lot of the older homes were never designed for these modern furnaces. They were designed for the modern homes. So the problem with these modern homes is that the furnaces can actually be in the center of the house rather than on an exterior wall, right? Which means the vent pipe has to be much longer. Now with the older furnaces, you actually had a vent stack, similar to this, that went up through the roof. A lot of the times your hot water tank and furnace were connected to the same vent stack. It went up through the roof, and those old furnaces really only had one safety switch on them, but they were built like Sherman bloody tanks. They would run forever, right? 30, 40 years, you could have one of those furnaces, you change the air filter, Bob's your uncle. With the modern furnaces, they got about 4 or 5 safety switches on them, and because any little thing goes the least bit out of parameter, these furnaces will trip, they'll shut down, and you have no heat. Which is, if the furnace is outside of parameter, you kind of want it not to continue running, because there could be a serious problem that could result in flame rollout or the furnace having serious issues. But at the same time, if you wake up 4 o'clock in the morning and your plumbs are frozen, well, you kind of get pissed off, right? So you want the furnace to work. And I had purchased this furnace, and ever since I had purchased it, it had nothing but problems, constantly. Okay? So I purchased it in 2014, it is now 2019, so 6 years of constant issues with this thing. Well, 5 years, because we're just into 19 now, but so 5 years of constant problems. It would work, it would shut off. It would work, it would shut off. It would shut off, it would shut off, it would work, shut off. You know, and it was a constant issue. And I had the original installer come in and look at the furnace. He said there's nothing wrong. I go, well, why is it shutting off? He goes, there's nothing wrong. I had the installer come back again. He looked around, he goes, no, there's nothing wrong. I go, why is it shutting off? He says, that was about it. He didn't want to fix it. It's not that he didn't want to fix it. either he didn't know what was going on, or he did know what was going on and he just couldn't be bothered to fix it because he already had his money. So doing this again and repairing it correctly is not of any benefit to him whatsoever. So I had called in another furnace repair company to look at it, and the way this was explained to me is this furnace, the way it was installed, is the issue. So it wasn't the furnace itself. There was actually nothing wrong with it, because this company would go through this furnace, check everything you could possibly think of, and it just kept shutting down. It was always the same thing, code 31. Every time, code 31, code 31, code 31. I'm sure you've heard, if you're watching this video, you probably know what I mean by code 31 all the damn time. So it was always code 31. And the way they explained it to me was, this furnace is installed within parameters, but just barely. It's a delicate balance. It's barely balanced. So it's always just on the edge of tripping. And then you reset it just on the edge of tripping. And the way I would reset it is I would simply shut the power down at the main switch, and then I would restart the furnace, and it would work, but then it would shut off. I'd restart it again, it would work, it would shut off. I'd restart it again, it might work for a couple of days, then it would shut off. So I noticed it depended on atmospheric pressure. If it was windy, the furnace would shut off. If there was possible snow, the atmospheric pressure would cause it to shut off. If it was raining, it would shut off. So a gentle breeze, would cause it to shut off. So it was constantly on that slight balance. And every time I had one of the repair guys come in, they would charge me $180 to look at it and say, there's nothing wrong. Which they were right. There was nothing wrong with the furnace. But the last guy came in and he explained quite carefully how the pipe was not installed correctly, because the new modern pipes have to vent sideways. They can't go straight up like the old ones. They have to be on a slope of 1/4 inch per foot. So the slope has to go slightly upwards to allow the water to roll back and to allow the pipe to vent properly. Okay? Now, the problem with this pipe is it's 35 feet long. There are at least 4 90-degree bends, and there's a couple of 45s, and it goes quite a distance. So what happens is pressure builds up in the pipe, a little bit of moisture builds up, it trips. You flush it out, you clean it out, and it works for a bit and trips. In these last 5 years, I've had to replace the pressure switch twice. Not once, twice. Was the old pressure switch actually damaged? Hard to say. So the last repairman that came in, I started asking him, is it normal to be replacing pressure switches like this? Because these things are $300 a pop to replace these things, because you can only get them from Carrier. There is no aftermarket. And he said, no, it's unheard of to replace a pressure switch this often. Never done it before. And this guy's been in the business for years. So, really nice dude. So I started talking to him, kind of picking his brain, just getting ideas of what's going on. What's wrong with this furnace? Why do I keep having problems with it? And he said, well, obviously it was the installer. Now, the original installation company, I had researched them, but probably not enough. And at the end of this video, I'm going to post their name and their phone number. And my suggestion is, stay the hell away from them, because they don't guarantee their stuff. You tell them there's an issue, they charge you $180 to come in, look around, and say, there's nothing wrong. And then the furnace kicks out again. So this last repair guy came in, and he pointed out a few things. He pointed out is this pipe here has no slope. There should be 1/4 inch for every foot that's going upwards, not down. There is no slope to that pipe whatsoever. Okay? This room alone has 3 90-degree bends in it. One there, and there's one more back there that's kind of hard to see, but it's there. A huge problem with these modern furnaces is they are designed for modern homes with the furnace on an exterior wall. This older home, we're actually right now standing in the middle of the house. That's an interior wall, that's an interior wall, that is an interior wall, and behind me is another interior wall, as you can see, the other room, heading outside. So I asked this last repairman, what can I do to fix this furnace once and for all? So if nothing's wrong with the furnace itself and it's the install that was the problem, what can I do? He said, well, maybe call up the original installer. I said I did. They said, and that was about it. I said, okay, well, what if I installed another pipe, maybe a 3-inch pipe? He said, that would definitely help. And I said, what if instead of going up, over, around, and all the way back, which is a 35-foot run, what if I went to a closer exterior wall, which would be a straight, short run, and remove a few feet? He said that would definitely be worthwhile. He suggested maybe going with a 2-inch pipe instead of a 3-inch. I said, well, a 3-inch is going to be difficult to install, and if it is too big, I can always fit a 2-inch inside of a 3-inch and downsize it, but you can't fit a 3-inch inside of a 2-inch. Okay, here's the situation. Now I have to install a 3-inch pipe inside the house, and it's already been drywalled, but do I want to keep paying $180 every couple of weeks or a month or so to have the furnace looked at and have somebody say there's nothing wrong? So what I did was I did not remove the original 2-inch pipe. I actually left it right where it is, just in case. And then I installed a 3-inch pipe. So I went with something like this. This is the new pipe. This is the old one. Quite a difference. Quite a difference. And here we are. 3-inch pipe is installed. As you can see, before the pipe goes into the furnace, you have to downsize it to a 2-inch. But the 2-inch went from 35 feet down to a few inches. So now the 2-inch pipe is only about 12 inches compared to the original 35-foot run. So the 3-inch pipe goes all the way up and into the ceiling. As you see, I had to cut a hole right there in order to install the pipe between the joists. Now, if you do this right, everybody's so afraid of cutting drywall. Honestly, you take a hacksaw blade and you can cut through drywall nice and clean, nice and easy. Hacksaws are designed to cut metal. It will cut drywall like a knife through butter. And then you can actually take, if you're very careful, you can take the original drywall and reinstall it in the original location. Little bit of mud, little bit of tape, Bob's your uncle. And at the other end, I had to do the same thing, cut an opening in order to drill through the wall in order to run the pipe. Now obviously I didn't want to run the pipe along the ceiling, I wanted to put it inside the ceiling. It was a little worrisome because I didn't know if this 3-inch pipe was going to work, how well it was going to work. Was I wasting my time doing this? So a little bit of anxiety, but I decided I had to try something. So I cut this opening, put the pipe through, and I only had to cut 2 openings, and that was it. In order to run the 3-inch pipe, I only had to cut 2 openings in the ceiling, and the pipe went in relatively easy. You're supposed to have a 1/4 inch of rise for every foot of run. Not really possible in a 9.5 inch space, but I did my best to make sure the end of the pipe had a constant slope all the way back to the furnace. Even though it was a slight slope, some slope is better than no slope. And as for the original 2-inch pipe, I now use that as cold air intake. The original installer simply had the cold air intake simply stop right about here, and this is where it would draw hot air and simply pull in the air. Now I have an actual cold air in. And the results of my hard work and hard effort. This furnace has been running like this for the last 3 weeks and hasn't tripped. Knock on wood. And so, in conclusion, it seems like switching to a 3-inch pipe over a 2-inch really seemed to do the trick. And cutting 10 feet out of the pipe, in other words going from 35 feet down to only a 25-foot run, definitely helped. So if you're having problems with your furnace in an older home, keep getting that code 31, keeps tripping, keeps shutting down, nobody seems to know why, it was the install. It was the original installer who either didn't know or didn't care or knew and didn't care. Best thing to do is have someone else or have somebody install a 3-inch pipe for you over a shorter run. It's all about keeping the pressure down. It stops the pressure switch from tripping. Now, I have been told that if you have too much flow, that it can actually cause a drop in pressure, which can cause the pressure switch to trip, which is what caused anxiety going from a 2-inch pipe up to a 3-inch. I felt maybe I was causing too much flow, but the restriction of the old pipe was so bad, I just couldn't live with it any longer. So, and if need be, if let's say you install a 3-inch pipe, now it's flowing too much air, you can always stick the 2-inch. You can always take your new 2-inch, run it inside the 3-inch, run it back down, and reconnect. Not that hard. I'm not saying switching to a 3-inch pipe is going to solve everybody's problem, and I'm not saying running the pipe straighter is going to solve all the problems in the furnace. If the furnace has other internal issues, obviously switching to a different pipe is not going to fix it. But if nothing else is wrong, the problem is the install.